it's paradoxical. I agree with him that we should get rid of these products. But I think every time I hear people focusing on COVID and H1N1 in the MAHA world, I'm always shaking my head because that is playing a loser's game. That's playing whack-a-mole on infectious diseases um, that would not be lethal if your metabolic rate was improved.
Our neighbor's choice.
We have a guest today that we have returning with us, Dr. Paul Alexander. How you doing, sir?
Not bad, David. Thanks very much for having me. It's always an honor and a privilege to be on your show.
Yeah, it's great to speak with you again. And, I wanted to get you on to get your latest thoughts on where things are heading with the public health sector. The new administration, HHS, now past 100 days. What is the lay of the land about what's happening? And it's been past 100 days now, the new administration. You were involved with HHS as a senior advisor in the last Trump administration. Where do you stand now? Are you going to be involved with them? And what do you do? What's your evaluation of where the policy is right now?
Well, first of all, thanks very much. And I was a senior advisor to POTUS Trump in term one through HHS. And so I was involved in the pandemic response, but more as an antagonist to people like Fauci and Birx from on the inside. And that's why I was asked to join the administration. So that's number one. Number two, since POTUS Trump has been, well, I was very involved in the re-election because I worked with the different groups we were called on to help push out the evangelical and Christian vote. So I spent a lot of time in the swing states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, etc., agitating and pushing Christians and evangelicals to vote. And they brought it home. So I still support President Trump. In terms of term two, the MAHA crowd, the White House and stuff particularly reached out. And so I did a bunch of interviews and stuff to rejoin, to provide support, technical support somewhere. And where I am right now is I was told that I've been recommended to hold a senior advisor position somewhere. And the assumption is it's going to be in HHS again. So probably in support of Robert Kennedy. And Kennedy knows this because we communicate, and he knows where I am right now in the process. What I've been told is this is going on for about 3 months now, is that initially that my position and some others were being blocked by the Democrats and some rhinos and deep state people because they can. And so we've just been waiting and pushing. And then when I was updated recently, the White House liaison, so the person who handles this situation reached out to explain that there's a bottleneck right now in the final sign-off for these types of positions. It's not a government hire. It's not through the federal workforce, a career position. It's a political appointee. And the vetting right now is taking unusually long time. So they just asked me to hold on. So I'm doing that.
So what are you doing in the meantime? Anything else? Any other projects you got going on?
Well, I mean, like what I'm doing, I'm interviewing a lot. I'm writing my Substack, Alexander COVID News Substack. And that blog goes out daily. And just finding, like I support a bunch of groups, people in the Congress, people in the Senate. When they have hearings, I give a lot of technical information, support, but I'm just waiting a bit longer to see what happens with this job at the White House, in HHS and that. But I'm looking at wherever I can fit in because, it's been tough for people like me since President Trump because in supporting him, we paid a price.
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. You become political. Yeah.
Yeah, we become political and we become toxic.
You can't just go back to peaceful rodent studies, right? I mean, it's just,
No.
yeah.
So, I'm very grateful to be on shows like yours because you have a varied audience and a very informed audience, plus who you are in terms of your advocacy across time
Yeah.
and trying to inform the public and on just good health, well-being, broaching it with some politics, etc. So for that, I want to know, what do you have in mind right now? What is important on I mean, look, President Trump nominated Makari and Bhattacharya for FDA, NIH, respectively, and this CDC person. And there's been a lot of problems. These guys barely got through the nomination process. And then when he nominated Robert Kennedy Jr., he got through the nomination by one vote. I think that's Senator Cassidy. So it's not bulletproof up there, and there's a lot of acrimony and stress. I'm not happy with the appointments. I'm happy with Kennedy in the sense of he joined Trump, he helped Trump. I would have to say, because I've worked with him, I've done work with him. We've been on stage together, we've broken bread together. I think he's sincere. The challenge is that couple of challenges. One, he's not a technical scientist, he's a lawyer. I'm not saying you have to be a doctor or a doctorate or whatever, because he studies hard and he reads voraciously, so he's fairly well informed. But most of the people in HHS, in all of these sub-agencies like CDC, FDA, NIH, NIAID, these are hardcore scientists, corrupted to the core, but these are people with backgrounds, and they could mislead him easily. And we are seeing, for example, recently he came out and he had the last press conference, big press conference, I believe, on removing, I think, the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, the mRNA shot from the childhood schedule and for pregnant women, the CDC schedule and for pregnant women. Turns out when we check up to this moment, it's still there. So he is the head of HHS, which oversees CDC. CDC reports to him. That director reports to him. Yet CDC still has the COVID shots for infants and children and for pregnant women. So it's almost as though Kennedy's saying one thing in a big fancy news conference, get a lot of play, and yet these sub-agencies are not following what he's saying. So, it's confusing. It is very confusing to us. And HHS put out a big document recently, 70-page document, like an update. And only after the document went out, we realized that it was full of errors and inaccuracies. And I believe one of the problems was improperly citations. That's a no-no in the scientific medical research field. So for that kind of document, suboptimal like that, to come out of the HHS is very embarrassing, extremely. In other words, lower level people produce that, the career people, the researchers, the scientists who are paid a lot of money, they produce that, give it to Kennedy. He come out and talk about it. Now we find out that there's improper citations, etc. It's not only frowned upon, you just don't do that, because academic research and publishing depends on scientific integrity and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's just a big black guy, and he's had multiple black guys. And the FDA came out and talked about they're gonna still approve under Makary, Prasad, and they're gonna still approve mRNA vaccines using the old method that we spent 4 years showing them that it was suboptimal and fraud. I mean, you're using a process called immunobridging, you're using antibody levels, using something called regulatory capture, where they're no longer going to run randomized controlled trials. They're going to approve new vaccines based on once those new vaccines will have similar ingredients and look the same, etc., as ones that were approved before. You don't do that with drugs and vaccines. You need to run the research each and every time. You need to run proper studies, long-term, proper sample size, proper patient important outcomes. So everything is not even better than under President Trump. It's the same as if it was under Biden. So the question is, why did he nominate these people? I'll be blunt, Makari, Bhattacharya, just because they are not making any difference as far as I'm concerned. Anytime they made an announcement, when we sit back, let the dust settle for a day, we realize we kind of being played. And Robert Kennedy, I want him to succeed as the head of HHS. I don't think he's properly served right now. And some people are saying that his job really is to try and still advance the mRNA. I don't want to say that, because then what then is there left to fight for? Because we really trusted when he not supported Trump that he's going to end these vaccines, because they don't need any more studies. Everything is done. We just need a decision, pull them for market. So we are just all confused as a society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Meanwhile, I think we got to use the time we have to put as much pressure on the political folks in power to rethink the paradigms of the care, the standards of care for a whole host of diseases, including cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's and heart disease. All the big killers need to be all rethought, right? You know, because everything that the standard of care is doing is not working. And you know, my biggest hope with the FDA is that there would be a repeal of their ability to criminalize alternative health solutions for diseases. Right now, you know, it's a crime to make any kind of claim or even post a testimony about a supplement like vitamin C or something like that helping with a particular illness. That's considered introducing a drug into interstate commerce that has not been approved by the FDA.
No,
So that has to be repealed. And I know people who are going to be supposedly in power there who I've talked to for years who agreed with me on that. So, you know, the problem is that the way these there's regulatory environments are set up, the political from what I understand, maybe I'm incorrect, but the political appointees, even like what you would be, have very little power over the giant bureaucracies that they get into. All the career, I mean, you talked about this too in the past. The career bureaucrats are not able to be basically messed with. It's almost like they bring people like you in as a kind of like a kind of cover to make the public feel like change has happened, and then you guys don't do anything. You just kind of not that you can't, not that you're not trying to, but not much can happen, right? You know, so it's kind of you're there to make it feel like something happened, and then they exit you out the stage, and the same bureaucracy, like you called it, the deep state. You know, they stay.
Well, that's the thing, you know, and I think I was explaining before that I remember going to President Trump's hotel for we got invited to go and in DC, and I remember a State Department official telling me, clearly was not a supporter of President Trump, but actually was there in Trump Hotel that people like POTUS Trump are only here to visit. We, the career officials, we run America. We run State Department. We run the country. President Trump is just a visitor. And he's right, what he told me. You know, he said the president really has no power. We, the deep state bureaucracy, run the country, and it is true. And again, you know, if you pivot to Biden, as time has gone by, we've just gotten to find out a little more. But we knew this. I wrote about it too. There were 5 to 6 to 7 people behind the scenes who really was running America in the Biden administration, because Biden was non-compos mentis. He was not of sound mind. So these people were actually signing everything. All of the directives coming out of the White House from him was really them. So we had 7 or so people: Ron Klain, Jill Biden, Hunter Biden, all these different people in the White House close to Biden who were actually running the country. And now we have these inside reports from Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson and these guys who wrote that book, Original Sin, that Biden would attend the meetings but had nothing to say. He was
Yeah.
just out of it.
Yeah.
They were actually making decisions on everything. And now Trump pivoted us to the fact that they were using the auto pen. I mean, that's a crime. So we need that really needs to be investigated. It's almost like we had a 4-year presidency that was stolen and a make-believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that is the deep state. So they ran the country, they subverted and inserted themselves, and they sidelined a sitting president. Well, he was sick, he couldn't do anything. And they ran it. So that's how they run it today. And they run it so Trump won. And Trump is making a lot of noise and turning over things in DC. But the question is, would it be long term? Because remember, he could sign as many executive orders as he wants. Unless Congress takes it up and codifies it into law, it will fall away. And then the next president that will come will reverse everything that hasn't fallen away too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we are misled.
I think that the best thing that we can do on the health side is to, you know, is to put together private efforts to, research and fund and promote the truth about what is underlying all of these various disease states. These products that people are being told are good, it's almost a losing battle, in my opinion, to try to control the regulatory environment to tell the truth about those products, because those products are a product of these pharmaceutical companies that absolutely, in their view, they own those agencies, and they own the Congress, and they're not going to, just allow somebody to get in office and then just appoint somebody and then just stop everything they're doing. They are criminals of the highest order that receive hundreds of billions of dollars and wealth transfers based on fraudulent medical paradigms. They're not, there's people, people don't understand that, the system is designed to, not allow for any of that kind of stuff to stop. The criminal fraud is not going to stop internally. But the way I think we could beat it is to just allow the public to be informed about what actually causes these diseases and then how to prevent them and then how to treat them without even using any of the paradigms that the FDA and the CDC are promoting. You have to let them die on the vine, in other words. You can't stop the supply side of their criminal garbage, but you can change the demand side. I know it's difficult, but it's about the best pathway, I think, for having real change at this point in that regard.
I agree with you. And the thing about it is why it's very important, David, is for people like you. You have a voice and a persona. Look, let's be blunt with each other, sir. The entire system is corrupt. I mean, let's be blunt. Between me and you, President Trump taking that plane from Qatar, that's a major problem. That smacks of bribery. I don't like it. I mean, if President Trump wants to fly around in a gold plane, we have Air Force One, the most advanced, best aircraft in the world. The only difference between that Qatar jumbo jet and Air Force One is it have bigger TVs inside of it, televisions, and more plush carpet. But it doesn't have no weapon systems. It doesn't have no bulletproofing. It has no spies systems and whatever, eavesdropping systems. that Air Force One has. So Trump has the best plane. I actually feel a little disrespected by President Trump. I think Americans are feeling that he is saying that this Qatar plane built for these woman abusing sheiks and Arab mullahs and stuff in those countries is a better plane than the Air Force One. And now we're finding out it will cost the Pentagon 2 billion US. 2 billion US. 5 times the cost of the plane, 5 times to rewire it and to bring it up to spec to Air Force One. So why would President Trump? You see, these are the things, so much good the guy is doing. But these are the things that make you what? You need that kind of bling? You want to drive around in a gold plane that have fancy interior? Well, fix the Air Force One. We have 2 Air Force Ones coming from Boeing in a couple of years. Why can't you wait? You know, look, these Middle Eastern people are not giving him a plane for free. Yes, we have to check it for spies and spyware and stuff. And you see, the challenge is the Congress is the one supposed to constrain this and control it, but they're doing nothing. And I don't like this meme coin stuff, this Bitcoin drama. It's almost as though everybody is enriching themselves. And first of all, only billionaires around him, and then everything is about more money. It's almost as though Biden and they damaged America with breaching the border and all of these things and on all of their own criminality. Never helped Americans, especially poor people. But now in the Trump administration, I support the guy so much. Yet to me, for factory workers, truck drivers, assembly line workers, only rich people, when you look at it and they focus on the stock market, I don't play the stock market. I assume you don't play the stock. Normal people don't play we don't have that kind of disposable income.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Even if some say, well, many people's pension funds are tied to stock. That's not my business. That's those pension fund people to administrate my money. That's their stuff. But I'm not playing in the stock market. And what I'm saying is, all you're seeing is these rich people around Trump, these entitled people going to Palm Beach and Mar-a-Lago, when real Americans, real hardworking, bread and butter Americans can't. That's the issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you think is the solution out of that?
Well, I mean, the solution out of that is for President Trump to behave. I mean, behave means you represent all of America. When people turn on the television, you think we're living in the Gilded Age of America now, and it's just gold. I mean, when you look at the Oval Office, you have gold trimmings on the back now. We elected you, brother, to go up in there and rambo the whole place, tear it down, burn it down, fix it. You know, I think we're getting a little misguided with a lot of bling and stuff and a lot of chaos, and we're not paying attention to what is happening to how they're running this government. So I don't know. I'm a little disappointed. So I want to see President Trump put his foot down. I think the health agencies is a perfect example. We're not getting properly served there. We have people at HHS, NIH, FDA, etc. And there's a lot of meetings, town halls, fancy photo ops and stuff. Really and truly, we're the same place we were. mRNA vaccines remain available to Americans. We're still talking about a fraud COVID, and they're still talking about fraud PCR-created H1N1 avian bird flu. So it's almost like we're being played. And there are people who write to my blog, my Substack, in comments. My Substack is Alexander COVID News Substack. And they write repeatedly that they thought that President Trump was part of some inside malevolent group, that he worked against America, that he brought the vaccine and all that. And he, you know, and all the fraud of the lockdowns. And I can't believe that. I can't believe it. You know, so that's where I support him and I push back on them. Because let me just say it this way, David. If we get to find out one day that Trump was part of bringing a fraud COVID and part of the pushing the mRNA vaccines, even though knowing that they don't work and they harm, then we might as well give up, so as a society and as a country, because he's the topmost person and we trust him to safeguard Americans. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the problem with focusing on politics for your solution is you have nothing when you do that. You have to you have to change the game and the skin in the game of getting out there and doing things in the private sector. It's the only way you can change things, really. You know,
yeah,
you have to change people's minds in the culture. You have to change people's minds in academia. You have to change people's minds and the just the public awareness about what actually is driving all of these diseases. It's my belief that MAHA, it's paradoxical. I agree with him that we should get rid of these products. But I think every time I hear people focusing on COVID and H1N1 in the MAHA world, I'm always shaking my head because that is playing a loser's game. That's playing whack-a-mole on infectious diseases um, that would not be lethal if your metabolic rate was improved. And to me, going down to the root of the problem of getting the public to understand that most of the diseases that are associated with aging do not need to be prominent. They need to be very obscure. And that the way you solve that is by increasing the metabolic rate of individuals and understanding how to increase the metabolic rate and how that all coincides with diet and other types of transitions that we can easily make without waiting for Trump or somebody to be good or bad or whatever. That to me is where all the action should be. So I hope you'll help us in doing that. I want you to be a part
yes.
of, I want you to help us be a part since you're an evidence-based medicine scientist. What's the term that epidemiologist or what's the technical term for your background that you prefer?
Epidemiologist, but my skills is my actual name is as a research methodologist. So anything to do with research, conducting trials.
Well, I'm going to have to consult with you because we're going to try to solve this cancer problem. I'm calling for a Manhattan Project for cancer that
Yeah,
Nixon declared war on cancer. In the 1970s, we can actually win this war in 2 years. If we roll up our sleeves and get serious. And I'm hoping that we can, recruit your services to help us do that.
absolutely. I'm on board with you.
Well, I appreciate your time, sir. I want to let you get back. I know you've got a lot of pressing matters right now in your life, so
Yeah, yeah,
you stay in touch
yeah.
with us and keep
Well,
us abreast of what's happening with you.
yeah, and David, we're still in a fight. I know you spoke about the issue around do you want to talk more about the direction you're taking, the possible research you want to run on another show?
I think we'll do it another time. I want to get this thing going, and I'm going to talk to you. So I'll tell the public that I'm going to be talking to you to see what your advice is and bringing you into the conversations that we're having. But we're going to solve the cancer thing, and once we solve the cancer thing, it will give us the information to solve the diabetes, the Alzheimer's, the heart disease, the whole enchilada. And once we get those solved, it will also help us understand aging in general, senescence, which will help us solve for resilience towards new viruses that come along. So it's a downstream effect. Look, we can't stop people. People are mentally ill and they're going to obey what the state tells them to do. Can't do anything about it. You really can't do anything about it. The
Mhm.
people who are want to believe in the state are going to believe in the state. And I understand people talking about using the state for certain things. It's fine, but you just have to expect very little good to come out of your efforts in general.
All right, well, David, I wish
Donald Trump is 78 years old.
yeah, 79. He's going to be
79.
79.
So he's 79 years old. Okay, what is a 79-year-old's time horizon? I'm 36 years old. So
Well,
I still have to think about what's 36 more years from now. Okay, then I'm 72. Okay.
Still,
Is Donald Trump thinking about what's happening, 36 years from now? Probably not. Not as much. He wants to go down in history or something, but he's not thinking about, what can I do right now for the long game? He's thinking about, I've got a short window. I want to maximize my, the things that I want to make me look good right now. And if he was smart about it, he would, maybe he would understand the metabolic stuff. I don't think he's interested in that type of topic. That's not his personality. So I don't look at him as someone that can save me, like my Santa Claus or something. I don't think about that for any politician. And I know
mhm,
there's a lot of people in the new right that are really interested in the power politics thing, and I get it. I understand the point of it, but it's not that interesting to me because you have children who are dying from cancers that cancer shouldn't even be happening with children. So you have to just step back and go back to the basics and find out what's causing this. And I'm going back to the researchers who were not psychopaths or corrupted by, groupthink. And I think that's going to provide us with a lot of fascinating insights. I think having you on board at least as a consultant would be fantastic to teach us how to help us how to do the methodological approaches correctly and navigate the labyrinthine world of getting things published. And I don't think you should discount your chances to rebound from the politicization of what happened to you because you're a young man too, so you got a long time horizon to go into different endeavors besides just whatever politicization happened with COVID. And to be fair, all the things that you were early on about COVID are all the more time we have, the more you're getting. The majority of the public is moving more and more in your direction. So that only works to your advantage. So unfortunately, it's unfortunate because we wish you were wrong, right? We wish you were wrong about everything you said on some
yeah.
level. But
But a lot of things
people
you
got
said,
those garbage products and they're going to be harmed and are being harmed. And,
yeah,
what's done is done.
yeah. And you were prescient yourself, so almost like a whisperer. So the most important thing is we're not giving up and we're still in the fight. And
Yeah.
I thank God that people like you are there, kind of a tip of our spear in the
Do you
media.
think people who are real dreamers and actual decision people are going to be heard at the cocktail party at Mar-a-Lago? Of course not. Of course not. Even Elon Musk couldn't make it. Even he couldn't survive DC. You know what I mean? Here's the richest
Yeah,
man in the world, with the biggest publishing platform of anybody, really. If he uses his X, he can make anybody be seen by hundreds of millions of people. So he's got the biggest publishing firm in some ways. Um, and even with all that power and money and influence and all the business successes that he's had, he wasn't able to survive the DC machine so far. I mean, they basically, as soon as I remember seeing that, as soon as they, I connected Ron Paul to Elon, and Elon was tweeting out Ron Paul 100 times before after the election and before the election too. And I thought, it was like a canary in a coal mine. If they didn't bring Ron Paul on to DOGE, it was my way of knowing, okay, it's the same old business as usual. And
yeah, they did.
they didn't bring him on. So that was my way of realizing that Elon had pretty soon, if not himself, be a part of, but most likely ran into a woodchipper. And that woodchipper said, we're not bringing people like Ron Paul on here because we're not serious about real cuts like Ron Paul would be. So they, of course, they lived up to our expectations, which were sub-zero. And that's what he ran into. And so he starts to do these cuts, and I knew that everything was going to stop as soon as he got his cabinet in, because once he got the cabinet secretaries in, they were going to want to have their little fiefdom under their power, and they didn't want to have some Elon Musk running around saying, "Hey, under your," because it was always nice to say, "Look what this past administration was spending on this." But now, when it becomes you're the secretary of that department, right? Now it's not the past administration, it's yours. And so it's a lot harder to disavow those things because you start to say, oh, that's nice. Let's keep this thing running. This is going to help, this or that. And then you get all these coercive ways of keeping people in line that probably are going on. But, Elon ran into that, and that was lights out for any serious spending cuts. And, I understand that, if you go watch my interviews with Tom Luongo, that Trump's up to something with this tariff thing and this kind of trying to stave off this control of the city of London over America's financial system. That's a whole nother world that I am not as well versed in, but I think it's fascinating, and it's a different layer to what's going on that I think a lot of people are not aware of. So I hope that turns out, like Tom says, to be a success, where Trump's basically trying to get American financial sovereignty back for the first time in a long time, away from the city of London and the European banking powers. But I hope he succeeds in that. But as it pertains to things like, you know, real reform and health, I keep my expectations very, very low. And I know you probably do as well. So let's stay in touch about all this. And I want you to get back to I know you've got some things going on that
Yeah.
are pretty pressing right now. And we wish you all the best with what's going on. All right.
Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you
Take
very
care.
much, David, to you and your family. God's blessings to you. And we'll catch up soon. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye bye.
Whereof is a man, what hath he got? If not himself, then there's not to say the words he truly feels, and not the words